Welcome to A Chef's Grimoire, Winter. Today we'll be working with the Magician. I wanted to start with our first recipe. We're making a completely magic bread. And it starts with flour, and we're using cups of flour. So to get a really good cup, you want to get the flour in your cup measure. And with the back of the knife, you're going to score the top. We need 3 cups, so you do that 2 more times. To the dough, or to the flour, you're going to add your salt. And we're using an active yeast. It's an active dry yeast, which is best for this recipe. Stir that around and get it all incorporated. Then we're going to add water. Now it's very, very important that your water is room temperature or at least 100 degrees. You don't want to kill the yeast. We'll pour that water in and give it all a really good mix. You're looking to form a shaggy dough. It's not going to look very pretty. It shouldn't be overly wet, but it shouldn't be overly dry. And we'll put it in a warm place for 12 hours. We're starting with the Magician. The Magician is the second card in the Major Arcana, following the Fool. Now, we covered the Fool in the last 3 episodes, so the story now continues. Soon after starting the journey, the Fool meets the Magician. The Magician is known for alchemy. His will and intent will turn ether into matter. Mind over matter approach is a never-ending cycle, hence the infinity symbol over the Magician's head. The Fool will quickly learn that the elements they have in their pack not only work on their own, but also work symbiotically with each other. The Fool will learn the meaning of so above, so below, and also shown the passion and purity of your soul is the very magic conjured with intention. The Magician is numbered 1, the first step in a 1,000-mile journey. So I'm going to go through basically all of the symbolism in this card that I know. And if you know more, please let me know. We're working with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck in the illustrations here. The Magician is dressed in these beautiful flowing robes. They're holding a scroll in their hand, which is facing upwards, meaning as above. And the scroll is something we'll also get into when we meet the High Priestess later in the cards. The finger of the Magician is also pointing downward, meaning so below, above, below. And this is one of the things that he teaches the Fool. Now, these 2 representations basically coincide with everything about this page on the book. If you see, I have a globe here or a crystal ball, and it's a circle. I also put the corners of the book into circled out instead of straight on, meaning that everything will come into center or into a beginning where there is no end, because it goes outward into a circle. So everything's circular. Everything is flowing, just like the infinity symbol. Pictured here, we have a young magician who's has this flowing robes on. In front of the Magician is a table which holds all the elements. We've got the cup for water, pentacle for earth, sword for air, and the staves and or wands for fire. Now this is what the Magician teaches the Fool all about, and it has to do with basically everything in here. The infinity symbol over the Magician's head. Up here I have a little reference to that. So we've got a mathematical symbol to refer to potential infinity, which is the infinity symbol. It's an endless process which produces a sequence with no last element. Each result is finite and is achieved in a finite number of steps. So getting back to the circular pattern that we have going on here, we touch on the story of Ouroboros. Ouroboros was or is a symbol of a snake with the tail in the snake's mouth. So it's holding its own tail. In Greek, aura means tail, while boros means food. The circle shape of the symbol represents the cycle of birth, life, and death. It symbolizes a metaphor of cyclical time, renewal, and regeneration. And this is going over many, many centuries, but regardless of time, cultures, or interpretations of this symbol, Ouroboros will always be illuminated in the Milky Way galaxy, for it resembles a circle. And it reminds us that infinity of a circle is without end. There's 6 representations I wanted to put into the book of the infinity symbol. One is the Ouroboros, which we talked about. Then we have harmony and balance, regeneration, yin yang, feminine masculine, unity and connection, and to me the most important, the cycle of life. So other symbolism in the cards or on this page that I feel represent our best representation of the card, I depicted hands coming from the heavens, releasing an infinity symbol into the ether, into our realm, to remind us again of everything we just spoke about. We have the owl here who sits perched on a crescent moon over the magician's name. Owls are all-seeing, they're all-knowing, they're wise, and they're pure magic. The Ouroboros we talked about with the circular pattern. I also have the crystal ball here with the crescent moon, and crescent moon. These also come to play with the high priestess, which is in our next card. It's a wonderful symbol for the beginning and the end. We've also have the fox here, this little fox. Now, foxes also are magical. They're very wise, just like the owl, and they have an uncanny way of surviving. They find food in the most obscure places, and they're just absolutely magical creatures. So I thought he was a good familiar to our magician friend. Now, how does this all go back to the realm of cooking? Well, bringing it all back to cooking, this is my way of taking the magician and putting him in the kitchen. So if I invited the magician over to cook a meal, I would hands down, number one, think that the first thing that they were going to do was make dough. To me, nothing, in my opinion, is more magical than dough. Although it's not infinite or finite, the oldest sourdough starter was revived from an ancient Egyptian artifact dating 4,500 years ago. That's incredible. True alchemy starts with grain milled into flour, and already before it becomes bread, biscuits, crusts, muffins, or cake, it becomes transformed by the grain being milled. Dough is a magical thing. It's fairly easy to throw together and is mostly forgiving. It can be transformed into any meal and can be filled with any of the elements. So, dough. Dough can be a million things, but today we're going to work with 3 types. I'm going to do basically a completely magic bread that is no need, just time. That's all it takes. So that's on the menu. We also have these wonderful dinner rolls that there's no yeast in, but yet they rise and bake beautifully. So they're magic in themselves. And lastly, pasta. That is the most magical thing. From very little ingredients to something that is fit for a king or a peasant or anything in between. Pasta is pure alchemy. So let's get started. Remember our dough? Still rising. To start our rolls, we're going to add flour to the bowl, a little sugar, baking powder, and salt. Give it a good mix. Now add your yogurt. Room temperature yogurt, ideal. Olive oil, and mix it all up. Now we're looking to get a nice dough together, but you don't want to knead it all that much. You don't want to overwork it. At this point, I'm just trying to get everything, all the residual stuff that's left in the bowl, into the dough. And then I'm just going to pat it around to make it a ball. It shouldn't be sticky. It should be perfect. I'm going to wet my hands a little bit, and I'm going to form the dough into balls that are about the size of what I want my dinner roll to be. So they're not going to rise very much. So I'm doing little ones for like a soup or a stew. You can make them bigger if you want. Then we're going to egg wash them. Now this is just the yolk of the egg, and you want to make sure you get all of the tops, trying not to leave any white exposed. And we bake. These came out amazing. They're crisp at the bottom. They've got great texture. A little cakey, but that's because there's no yeast, so that's to be expected. Now let's taste. Very good. Very good. And our bread dough is still rising. So to make the pasta dough, we're going to use grams. I have an empty bowl on the food scale, and I'm going to tare out the weight of the bowl. I'm going to add the flour, and I'm looking for 300 grams. Oops, I went a little over. So now what you do is you just take a spoon and you take out flour from your bowl until you get to 300 grams. Next, we're going to work with the eggs. So I'm going to crack 2 eggs into the first bowl, and I'm not going to use the side of the bowl. I'm going to use a hard surface and then open the shell with my 2 thumbs. That prevents any shells from getting in your work. Next, we're going to take the other 3 eggs and we're going to crack them into a bowl. But this time, I'm going to use my hands to go dumpster diving. I'm going to go and get those yolks out. Make sure you get all the whites off of them, any little protein sticking to them. Into the bowl it goes. You do that with all the eggs. Now we're going to make a well in the center of the flour. And we're going to pour our eggs in. We're looking for 185 grams. We only have 138, so I'm going to add some water. And I'm going to add a little olive oil. Last, we're going to add our salt. Now with a fork, we're going to whisk all this up in the center of the flour. You're going to start to incorporate a little flour into the whisking as you go. Now I don't think we need the food scale under here anymore, so I'm going to get rid of that. There we go. adding a little flour, a little at a time, until it starts to come together. Now you're going to get frustrated with the fork after a while, so now it's time to use your hands. When it starts to come together, you're going to do what's called kneading, Kneading, and we're going to need to dump it all onto a surface to do this. Now kneading is with your palm and the base of your palm, right here. You're going to push the dough forward, fold it on itself, and then bring it back to a ball. Push it, fold it, bring it back to a ball. Now we're going to need a total of 8 minutes. So put on some music, get a glass of wine. Soon you'll have a beautiful ball. Something like this. Now how do you know it's done? You insert your finger, and if it sticks and the finger indent doesn't go away, you gotta keep going. Let's try again. There we go. That's progress. So all of this residual flour we don't need. It just depends on, the conditions of the room, how cold it is, the humidity, all of that, as to how much flour the dough accepts. Once the dough is rested for at least a half hour, you're going to take a piece, and whatever you're not using, you're going to put in plastic so that it doesn't form a skin or get dry. Now we're making 3 types of pasta today because I'm going to do a little experiment. We're going to take the first piece and we're going to roll it into kind of like a hockey puck. Get it well floured. And I'm working with a pasta rolling machine. Now my machine starts at number 1, but many start at 0. That's the widest setting. We're going to take the puck and we're going to put it through the machine. Once through, you're going to fold it on itself in a trifold like this. And then at the same setting, that 0 or 1, you're going to roll it through again. Now we're going to turn the machine to the next number. On mine, it's 2. And we're going to roll the dough through again. Twice. You're going to do this with the dough up until number 6. So that's a lot of rolling. At some point, you're going to find the dough is too long, so you're going to want to cut it in half. We don't need it overly long for what we're doing. Now we're going to put it into the fettuccine setting on this machine, and we're making a fettuccine. Now you could stop there if you want, but we're going to make our fusilli. So we're going to take one of these fettuccines, and I'm cutting it in half with my thumb, just tearing it apart. And I'm taking a little skewer. The skewer is going to be held by my thumb, and then I'm just going to wrap the fettuccine around the skewer. Just like this. This is trial number 1. For trial number 2, we're going to take the same amount of dough. We're going to flour it nice, and we're going to hand cut it after we've rolled it through the machine. And we're going to roll it around the skewer. This one's a little easier to do. For the final trial, we're going to use a rolling pin, no machine. We're going to roll the dough to as flat as we can get it. And then we're going to hand cut it. Now this dough is a little thicker than the others, so I'm going to continue to roll it from its flat shape into a round shape between my hands, like this. Remember our Ouroboros? That's what we're doing here. We've got a little snake. We're gonna put him onto the skewer, and we're gonna circle him around himself. Just like that. So we have all our shapes, and I'm going to remove the skewers. This is a labor of love in itself. They have to rest on the skewers for at least 10 minutes to start to dry, and then they're easier to pull off. I've got a boiled water. I'm going to add a nice amount of salt, get it seasoned like the sea. And in goes the first shape, which was machine rolled and shaped. When it's done, you're going to take it out and put it into a bowl. I have some garlic butter sitting off to the side that I have for dressing for all 3 of these pastas, so they'll all have the same sauce. Next is trial number 2. This is the machine rolled but hand cut pasta. And lastly, our hand rolled and hand cut pasta. All of this took about 3 to 5 minutes per pasta shape. There they are, beautiful.
Okay, we're going to taste test all of these.
So the first one I have here is the pasta machine cut. So it was rolled and cut by the pasta machine, and then I just twirled it around the little stick. Aesthetically pleasing, as we said, it's not very. It's kind of, you can't really see the curls. They're all on themselves. But let's see how it tastes. It's very light, delicious, passable, but I think we can do better. Okay, next up is the hand cut one. Now we cut this by hand. We rolled it in the machine flat, and then I hand cut it. So let's give this a try. This is more aesthetically pleasing. You can see the coils, which is nice. Let's see how it tastes. Much better than the first one. It has texture. The other one I think was too thin. And again, since it didn't look so great, this looks a lot better. So if you have a pasta machine and you want to roll out your sheets and then do the rest by hand, this is pretty darn good. Let's try the last one. All right. This by far looks the best. It looks like fusilli. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? So let's try it. This is the hand rolled and cut. So I didn't use the machine at all. All right, in my opinion, this one wins. It's the best in show. It has a lot more texture than the hand cut, but machine rolled. I like this. I think it's dense. It's got body. And as you can see, it's aesthetically pleasing. I think this would be the winner. So if you were going to serve this to guests, this is the one I'd do. And it would be really fun to do like a Sunday or weekend party where you get your friends together and everybody rolls their own on their stick. I don't know. But pure magic. We're going to start by getting a 6-quart cast iron Dutch oven hot in the oven. Then we're going to take our beautiful dough and we're going to get it out of the bowl. You're going to need quite a bit of flour. And take your time here. Flour your hands when needed and just lift it from the bowl and let it fall onto the pool of flour. Next, we're going to flour the surface and we're going to gently form it into a ball that's not sticking to the bottom of the countertop. Just like that. Now we're going to move it onto a piece of parchment paper. And while our pan is getting hot, we're going to cover it up with plastic, again, not to form a skin. When the pan is ready, remove the plastic. If it sticks a little bit, that's okay. Flour the surface and pop the whole thing into the very, very hot cast iron pan. Now I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to score the top of the bread. You can do this. It gives it that artisan look, and you can do any shape you like. I'm just doing slits. Cover the pan and pop it back in the oven. Let's slice it up and see what we get. When I sliced this, I got about 3 slices per side, plus the heels of the bread.
So here it is, that beautiful bread. The texture is amazing. It's crisp on the outside and tender on the inside. You know, in speaking about this bread, I think that this brings together everything we've spoken about in the video about the card. The Magician card, it's all about all the tools that you have, that you carry over in any way that you need them. Just like the Fool with his pack and what he has in them, what you have given to you, you'll utilize your whole life. So this bread, simple ingredients, very little work, thrown together, and it becomes and blossoms into an amazing piece of art that we all are. So when you turn the Magician card, know that that's just a reminder that the circle of life is in you and that all the tools that you have can be made into something that's absolutely magical. See you next week.